What are the goals for the Jaguars and can they win the AFC South this year? I'll give you my opinion in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Tony Wiggins here with the Locked On Jaguars podcast. Thank you for joining me. What's up, good people? Chilling here on this beautiful North Florida day. Well, it was, and then the sky fell out. But I got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. And you start here with us every single day because it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. Reminding you, we are free on all platforms. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. The division, the AFC South. Could we be saying the AFC South champion Jacksonville Jaguars? Yeah, we can. I'm going to boldly make that prediction and petition today that absolutely. I'm going to go further than to say they can do it. They will do it. I think the Jaguars are going to win the division this year. Now, I think they're going to do it at about 10-7, but I do believe that they'll have a very good divisional record, and I'm going to tell you why. In segment 3, I'm going to talk about Jacksonville. But in segment 1 or 2, I'm going to talk about those other teams and things that have to happen. And the reason I'm going to do that is simply because of this. There are 2 reasons why this team has a shot. One of them is because of what I believe they have done to improve. The other one is because the windows of a couple of other teams in the division, I think, is closing. It's not going to stay open forever. And another team in the division, I think, is, they're behind the Jaguars, and I think that's the Houston Texans. Now, I could be wrong about Houston. Houston could shock and surprise some people because I think they're going to be well coached. And they beat Jacksonville twice last year. But I'm still going to say that on paper, I believe that they're not very good. And Jacksonville lost a lot of games last year, quite frankly, that they probably had a better chance to win if they had a better coach. So we'll get to the Jags in segment 3. First, I want to talk about the team that won it, the Tennessee Titans. Shout out to my man Tyler Rowland at Tic Tac Titans because he's heard me say what I'm about to say right now. And James Rapine, my partner, my running dog that I run shotgun with on the NFL National Show every Tuesday, well, he heard it too the other day. And James tried to act like I needed to be committed when I said it. But I think they win at least 5 games in the division. Yep, you got it. I said it. The reason why is, as much as I like Mike Vrabel, I think their window is starting to close in Tennessee. They have dilly-dallied around too much with Ryan Tannehill as their quarterback. Now, I know it's a business where you go out and you just keep a guy long enough until you can get somebody better. But they made a commitment to Ryan Tannehill a few years ago and gave him a really big contract. And I think that's going to be the undoing of Tennessee. Also, while that window was open for Tennessee, they made a couple of questionable draft picks. I'll never forget, they drafted one dude who was wanted by the cops. And, talk about doing your homework, right? Do that warrant for his arrest, and they picked him. So I believe he was a wanted man. Is that the first time a team drafted a fugitive? But then he got another guy. I'm not picking at mental health, but Isaiah Wilson. They hit the lottery when it comes to something like can't get right for real, okay? Because dude was drag racing down the middle of the street, and if something's wrong, if he's not well, I want him to get well because that stuff is more important than football, right? But we're talking about football right now. That's another mistake that they made. They don't seem to be able to draft corners. They lose I think the guy outside of Derrick Henry, who's their best player, A.J. Brown, and they send him because they don't want to pay him. They send him. It's wild when you don't want to pay Ryan Tannehill. You don't want to pay A.J. Brown, but you willing to pay Ryan Tannehill. So he gets shipped off to Philadelphia, and they draft another young cat who's missed some training camp in Treylon Burks. Sign Robert Woods is a pretty good signing. The offensive line isn't as stout as we all have grown to think, with this Tennessee Titan being the bullies of the division. Yeah, I think the window's starting to close. And while Mike Vrabel has been the alpha dog of coaches in the AFC South, he ain't no more. Yeah, I said it that way. Bad English and all. He ain't no more. Segment 3, you're going to find out who he is. There's a new sheriff in town. I find it very difficult to believe that, other than recent record and recent history, what actual advantage does Tennessee really have over Jacksonville? Don't worry, I'll wait. You can't name it. So, yeah, I think Tennessee can get caught. I really do. I'm going to get to those other two teams in the division in segment 2. That would be Indy and Houston. Shout out to my brothers up in Indy who took over the Locked On Colts podcast. Shout out to my other brothers down in Houston that ain't going to like this one bit. Those dudes in Indy are nice. I don't know what's going on with them boys down there in Houston. Those are my boys, John Hickman and Cody Davis. Y'all know I love y'all, but if you hear this, don't be DMing me and cussing me out because I'm speaking facts and the truth. We're going to talk about the Colts and the Texans and why these teams, I believe, have opened the door for the Jaguars to do what I think they're going to do and win the AFC South. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. After I tell you about BetOnline.net, because it is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Did you bet on Serena to win that match last night? I did not bet. And I'm glad I didn't, because I told my wife and my son that she was going to get mollywopped. And what did she do? That's what great athletes do. They surprise you. But if you go to betonline.net, you'll get better info than the info that I gave my wife and my son, because BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. And you make me your first listen every single day here on Locked On Jaguars, and you start with me, and we are eternally grateful for your presence and your continued support and making us your first listen, because we're your team every day. I just talked about the Tennessee Titans and how they're going to move out of the way. They keep getting banged up. Harold Landry is out for the season now with an ACL. And now we got to get to the Colts. I think a very, very talented team. They got Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. And if you're patient and you can take what's there and dink and dunk, you can complete passes all day on Doug on a defense run by Gus Bradley. And you guys know that. We've seen it in the past. We saw it here. And we saw it when he was in San Diego or LA or whatever, and they played in the playoffs, and all they did was play off and let Tom Brady eat him up underneath. It's predictable, the way that he runs his defense. So now that they actually do have a competent quarterback, you have to remember that he's a stationary quarterback, and I think that makes him easier to defend, especially for a team like Jacksonville. Great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Some size at wide receiver. Pretty good player. Michael Pittman is a really good player. But I don't think that they have enough. And ironically, it's one of those teams that Jacksonville, when they were bad and they weren't very good, they were able to beat. 2 years in a row. Last year they beat him and kept him out of the playoffs. I don't think the Colts have much of an it factor, and I think Frank Reich might be in trouble if they don't have more success this season. So while I think the Colts are a pretty good team, I don't believe that they're going to be a team that's going to be good enough to get in the way of an upstart Jacksonville team. I just don't. Let's go down to Houston. Deshaun Watson is gone. He's in Cleveland now. What's the Mills kid name? He's the quarterback, the second-year guy that some people, I can't remember who it was. They said that they thought he was better than Trevor. And ain't. But I do think Houston has a little bit better of a football team than we all. Nick Casario has done a real good job. I think they have a better team than you think. I don't think they have a lot of great players, but I think they got some really, really good ones. And I do believe the system that they're going to run, those guys will be on the same page. I think Derek Stingley, Darryl Stingley's grandson, is the real deal. He's the real deal. And that Petrie kid that they took into the draft, Jalen Petrie, is also the real deal. But they're young. Really good draft class. Damian Pierce, I wouldn't call him one of my favorite players while he was in college because he plays for a school that I root against. But he was one of my favorite players, probably one of the best conversations I've ever had with a young man. And I've had a lot of them here, with my other profession at the Senior Bowl. I wanted Jacksonville to draft Damian Pierce. He's now running back 1 in Houston. And I do think they finally fixed their offensive line. How quickly will it all come together? Can they might be the one loss the Jaguars have this year in the division, because I do think they're going to play hard. They're going to do it the right way. And I know they changed coaches, but they still have continuity with some of the things that they tried to start doing last year because Lovie Smith was a part of that staff. So, yeah, I do believe that Houston has a lot to be optimistic about, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop Jacksonville from winning the division. So I'm talking about those teams and what is wrong with those teams that will allow the Jaguars to have a little bit of a clearer path or an opportunity to win the division. Now I'm going to talk about your Jaguars, and I'm going to tell you why I think they are going to win the division, and I'll do that in just a second here in segment 3 on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man. So
you are Locked On Jags.
We don't want that. Why do I think or believe the Jaguars will win the division this year? It's because I think they have the best coach in the division. That's number 1. 2, that's one. I think they have the best quarterback in the division. Having the best coach and the quarterback is now the combination that we've discussed a lot as one of the reasons a team can actually make an advance and move forward. I think the combination of coach and quarterback in itself is the best, and then individually, each one of them is the best. So you could have like the best quarterback without the best coach, but then still have the best combination. I think the Jaguars have the best coach and the best quarterback, and that makes them have the best combination also. I think they've done enough at the skill positions. They didn't do everything they could have done. They didn't do the most, but they've done enough to shore up the weapons around Trevor Lawrence. They have a lot of guys who can run and get open and create opportunities in passing lanes for a very, very talented young quarterback. I think the running back room really, really looks good. They added James Hasty after the initial 53-man went out. They were able to pick him up from the 49ers. I really, really do believe the Jaguars running back room, of course, with the 2 starters in ETN and James Robinson, I think it's as good as it's been in a long time, probably as good as it's been. I'll go back because when they had Fournette, they didn't have really anybody else. No disrespect to Corey Grant. I'll go back to this probably being the best shape that unit has been since they had Fred and Mojo. MJD. Concerned about the tight ends a little bit, although I think Chris Manhertz, the combination of both Chris Manhertz and Evan Ingram is also going to be something that I believe is going to be formidable. While not super great, it'll still be pretty formidable. And I believe the offensive line holds up as long as they don't have multiple guys who have to miss long periods of time. And of course, we talked about Trevor Lawrence. I think they're going to score points. So here's the other side of the ball. Defensively, I think they are going to be lights out. I like before we get there, let me get to special teams. First of all, Logan Cook is one of the 5 best punters in the league. This kid they added, the Nicholas kid that they added to be the kicker, I think the ball is lively. It comes off of his foot. He has a lively leg, and I think he's going to be able to kick it and be accurate because he's done it before. And in the return game, Jamal Agnew is going to get his opportunities as a kick returner and, of course, as a punt returner. And I think he's healthy. He's running around like he's healthy. So I think the unit that is always looked past a little bit is going to be pretty good in special teams, and that'll save field position and gain field position. And I believe that helps offensively and defensively. Now, this is what I want to get to. The Jaguars, I've always had this debate. People say, well, you build your team to win the division. I say you build a Super Bowl contender by building the team that you want, that you believe is a championship team. And as a byproduct of that, your goal is to win the division first, because it creates so much leeway and flexibility in terms of home games, in terms of being able to have possibly a bye week. And it sets you up pretty good where you're not having to play the number 1 seed, especially if the wild card wins, all of those scenarios. So I think, and I firmly believe, that the Jacksonville Jaguars are in pretty good shape defensively. While you don't build your team to win the division, this defense is built to win the division. I didn't say they were built to win the division. I said they are a good defense that is built. If when I point at them and I look at the teams around the division and what those teams do well, they're actually built to win this division. The difference between saying they're built to win it and that they were built to win it. You know what I mean? So I think that they are, when you look at the fact that the Colts want to run the football and that Matt Ryan is a stationary target, I think they're going to be able to stop the run with linebackers that can trigger, with size up front, with bigger, stronger athletes in their front 7. I believe that they are going to be able to affect the quarterback, especially a quarterback that's not mobile. I think the corners are big and strong. They won't have a disadvantage when some of the taller receivers around the league break the huddle. They'll be fine. Their corners are 6'1". I think both of them are like 6'1". So they have enough size at the point of attack to affect the football. And they can run. So they're a big team who can also move and run. Ryan Tannehill is a quarterback waiting to make a mistake. And the Tennessee Titans offensive line leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't think Houston has anything that is particularly scary when you think about the way the Jaguars defense is built. This is a different unit. This is a different unit with a little different of philosophy. There's still multiple. They still run a base 3-4, but it's different than the way that it was going to be played last year. And they have better players. So all of those things, when you add it together, they may have the best defense in the conference or in the division. As a collective, with a little bit leaning towards the Colts because they have proven guys like that you've seen. You know, you've seen Brenton Buckner, you've seen Darius Leonard. I think he changed his name, but I don't know what it is. But you've seen those guys. You've seen them. You've seen Yannick Ngakoue. You've seen him here. Just got to think that he's going to add something to that defense. I still will give the Jaguars a little bit of an edge overall when it comes to the secondary, the middle, as well as the front. So if you got the best defense, you probably have the best special teams, you have the best quarterback, and you have the best coach. There's no reason that you can't win the division. The key to them having a above 500 record, by the way, the key to that is them being able to win a minimum of 4, maybe even 5. And if we want to go all crazy, we can say 6 games in the division. So, yeah, I'm picking the Jacksonville Jaguars to win the division. Make sure that you tune in to Locked On Jaguars to the ultimate NFL, the ultimate football preview here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make it your second listen, because what we've done here is we have an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts on the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. It's been fun, man. I hope you guys enjoy it. Give you guys some good news. From I'm always, some people think I'm negative. So that's the good news. We gave you some good news. That's the gospel is called good news, and that's what we gave you here today. Till tomorrow, you guys take care of each other. We'll do a little roster review now after they have another 53-man roster. We'll tell you why they didn't go after certain people. I'll go into that a little bit tomorrow, because as the cuts and the waves were coming in, I had people wanting the Jaguars to go out and sign 25 people and change their whole team, and I told them it wasn't going to happen. So they signed 5 new players. We'll go through those guys tomorrow and then see what shape the roster is in post the initial 53, more cuts and more additions. Until then, y'all take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.